Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
تبحث الشرطة المصرية عن 6 باكستانيين تشتبه في
The Egyptian police are searching for 6 Pakistanis suspected of carrying out the Sharm El-Sheikh explosions, which killed 88 people. They released pictures and indicated that one of them may have been killed in one of the explosions. At the same time, 4 new bodies are being identified. Meanwhile, residents of the region and foreign tourists held a demonstration at the resort denouncing the explosions.
أثر تداعيات التفجيرات التي تعرض لها المنتجع السياحي المصري في شرم الشيخ المطل على البحر الأحمر.
The explosion attacks which affected this Egyptian tourist resort in Sharm El-Sheikh on the Red Sea compelled foreign tourists to pack up their bags and return to their homelands after dozens of people were killed. Buses headed towards the Sharm El-Sheikh airport carrying tourists returning to many European capitals. The Egyptian police intensified their checkpoints on the road and deployed a large number of security personnel in the South Sinai Peninsula, where the incident took place, and in the surrounding area. They have arrested 93 people who may have been linked to the explosions. More than 1,000 people among the Egyptian hotel workers, Bedouin elders and foreigners marched in a rally denouncing these explosions and chanting slogans condemning terrorism. An Egyptian investor in a tourist resort described his strong feelings of sadness and anger, indicating that there is a huge loss of tourists because of these explosions, which will have a major impact on tourism in Egypt.
Yes, in effect, some reservations have been canceled. I myself today received 60% of the cancellations from people who were coming.
Meanwhile, throughout the night, protesters held a march carrying the Egyptian flag and holding up banners in many languages denouncing terrorism. The demonstrators said prayers for the souls of the victims and lit candles at one of the sites where a car bomb exploded. The number of tourists coming to Sharm El-Sheikh and the rest of Egypt had dropped after the killing of 58 tourists in Luxor in 1997. The revenue from tourism in Egypt equals more than $6.5 billion, with more than 1 million people working in the industry.
نظم المئات من سكان مدينة شرم الشيخ والعاملون فيها من مصريين.
Hundreds of Sharm El-Sheikh city residents, Egyptian workers and foreigners organized a massive protest on Sunday against terrorism. The march came near the Ghazala Hotel, which was severely damaged from the explosions. The protesters chanted slogans calling for unity in the face of terrorism and terrorists.
بهذه الكلمات بدأت هذه التظاهرة التي امتلأت بها شوارع هذه المدينة.
With these words, this demonstration began in the streets of the city. Residents of the southern Sinai rejected the incidents which harmed their Sharm El-Sheikh resort province. People from various cities came to this demonstration, announcing that this protest was the best way to confront the enemy of terrorism, which made their families and friends victims at the site of the explosions.
Egypt is a country of security. We are a country of security and peace. We are walking in unity. The sons of the South Sinai are hand in hand with Egypt against terrorism. We do not want terrorism and condemn it. God does not accept the work of terrorists. A demonstration like this brings back life to Sharm El-Sheikh. It shows people that we are not afraid. Look at the foreigners who are with us participating in this demonstration and who really feel that we are in a truly secure country.
The demonstrators who stood in front of the Ghazala Garden Hotel and read prayers for the souls of the victims confirmed that they will never forget the victims who fell at this site.
I brought my daughter so that we can show all people that we're not afraid and we're staying in Sharm El-Sheikh, and God willing we will get through it.
The foreigners who brought flowers, lit candles, and participated in this demonstration all came to support and stand by the Egyptian people.
We're participating because we have been here for 2 weeks. The people here in Sharm El-Sheikh are great and the best people I've met. It is unjust for innocent victims to be killed by the hands of evildoers throughout the world. This happens everywhere, and it happened in London, so I had to stay and give my support. Yes, I think these marches contribute in confronting terrorism because people throughout the world see this and know that terrorism is not just in their country. So this is a call to everyone to take a position against terrorism.
Every country. I hope so, because something's got to.
I hope that these demonstrations help in stopping terrorism. I was in London when the 4 explosions went off. Then I came here and another explosion went off. I have to participate in this march because there's no safe place anymore.
Iraqi officials say 22 people were killed and 25 wounded today when a suicide bomber blew up a truck full of explosives outside a police station in Baghdad. But the U.S. military put the death toll at 40. The military said the suicide bomber used a semi-truck loaded with 220 kilograms of explosives. Around 22 cars, 10 shops and a residential building were set ablaze in a massive explosion outside Al-Rashid police station in Al-Mashdal neighborhood in the southeast of the capital. In another incident of violence, at least 7 people were killed today, including policemen and a young girl, while a U.S. Marine was killed by a roadside bomb near the Jordanian border yesterday. Meanwhile, U.S. and Iraqi authorities are to set up a joint task force to fix the criteria under which U.S. troops will hand over responsibility for fighting insurgents to Iraqi forces. U.S. President George W. Bush has refused to set a timetable for the withdrawal of 138,000 U.S. forces in Iraq, but has said that U.S. forces will stand down as Iraqi forces gradually take over. Last week, U.S. officials in Washington acknowledged that only a small number of the 171,500 Iraqis and police so far recruited are currently able to fight insurgents alone.
Egyptian police exchanged fire with gunmen today as they hunted for 6 Pakistanis suspected of involvement in deadly bombings in the Red Sea resort of Sharm El-Sheikh. The firefight with Bedouin gunmen erupted in the mountainous interior of the Sinai Peninsula, some 30 kilometers from the scene of Saturday's carnage on the coast. It came after police surrounded the nearby villages of Kurum and Ruaysat in overnight raids. Pictures of the 6 Pakistanis believed to have entered Egypt in early July were distributed to police stations in the Sharm El-Sheikh area after the attacks, which followed another bombing spree in Sinai resorts in October. Police said their passports were found in an unspecified Sharm El-Sheikh hotel, adding that one of them may have died in the deadly bombings, but stressing that the Pakistanis were not necessarily the bombers. Pakistani authorities said they had yet to be approached by their Egyptian counterparts about the 6 suspects. Pictures of more than 30 other suspects were also distributed, mostly Egyptians as well as internationally wanted terrorist suspects. At least 130 people have been arrested in a police dragnet as part of a massive search for the perpetrators of the attack on a hotel, a market and a parking lot. A U.S. soldier was killed today near Samarra, north of Baghdad. The U.S. military said in a statement the soldier died when an improvised explosive device detonated near his vehicle during a combat patrol. Meanwhile, suicide car bombers struck twice in Baghdad today, killing 14 people and injuring nearly 30. The first blast occurred shortly after sunrise at a security checkpoint near the Sadir Hotel in central Baghdad. The Iraqi Defense Ministry said 12 people, not including the bomber, were killed and 18 were injured, including security guards and civilians. The victims were believed to have been Iraqi private security guards employed by the hotel. About 3 hours later, a second suicide bomber targeted a former Saddam Hussein palace being used by the Ministry of Interior Police Command. 2 commanders were killed and 10 people were injured. The attacker drove into the main entrance of the palace in the western Baghdad neighborhood of Mansour at around 8:40 a.m. And last night in Kirkuk, unknown gunmen killed an Iraqi soldier and 2 civilians and wounded 6 people. One of 3 London Underground stations hit by the deadly July 7th suicide bombings was reopened today. Engineers have repaired the damage of the Aldgate station and reopened for the service. The Metropolitan line, which had been closed from Moorgate to Aldgate, also resumed a full service today. All services on the Circle line remain suspended. The Piccadilly line is suspended between Hyde Park Corner and Arnos Grove and between Rayners Lane and Uxbridge, while the District line is suspended between Edgware Road and High Street Kensington stations. Trains are running again on the Hammersmith and City line between Hammersmith and Paddington, but not between Paddington and Barking. The Northern, Victoria Central, Bakerloo, Waterloo and City, East London and Jubilee lines are running a normal service. Unidentified assailants attacked security force post in war-divided Ivory Coast government, held south, sparking gunfights that reportedly left at least 4 people dead. Gunmen attacked a gendarmerie station house in Anyama, a northern suburb of Abidjan, late yesterday, and 4 people reportedly died. UN officials hadn't yet confirmed the deaths or from which side they came from. Ivory Coast has remained tense and divided despite numerous peace deals meant to knit the West African nation back together after its 2002-2003 civil war.
An American delegation in Lebanon announced that a Lebanese flag would be flown over the Capitol building to show American solidarity with the Lebanese in commemoration of slain former Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri. No date was mentioned. MP Saad Hariri held talks yesterday with the U.S. Congress delegation in Khartoum, 2 days after U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice's visit to Lebanon. The delegation expressed the American people's support to the Lebanese. Kurt Weldon headed the delegation, which was equally divided between Republicans and Democrats. And 2 of its members, Salman Ortiz and Nick Rahal, are of Lebanese origin. The delegation is meeting today President Emil Lahoud and Prime Minister Fouad Siniora.
The American people cried and suffered the pain of the Lebanese people as the tragedy of February 14th unfolded. We thought it was important in scheduling this very short trip to the Middle East that we make a stop in Lebanon to appropriately show that Democrats and Republicans in the Congress are united in our support of the people of Lebanon and the stability of this country, in the great future that Lebanon will provide to the young next generation of this nation. The people of America don't wish to have any American blueprint on Lebanon. It's up to the people of Lebanon. But we do want to see Lebanon take its rightful place with its own rightful leaders, its own quality of life determined by the people of this nation. We want to help that be accomplished.
Thank you. Syria's ruling Ba'ath Party newspaper on Sunday blamed Lebanese politicians for fomenting anti-Syrian sentiment and demanded an apology as a verbal tit-for-tat escalated across border tensions. Ilyas Murad, editor-in-chief of Al-Ba'ath, denounced an anti-Syrian mobilization by the media and political figures and said none of those who have insulted Syria and offended its leaders will be welcomed in Damascus until they apologized to the Syrian people. Syrian weekly Al-Iqtisadiyya also shot back at negative comments by Lebanese politicians over Damascus's behavior. It said all these insults, as well as the unjust economic analysis, have made Syrians the first to demand the end of trade accords signed with Lebanon, which were more beneficial to Lebanon than to Syria. Tensions have mounted following Syria's troop withdrawal from Lebanon, and many Lebanese believe Damascus is still smarting for the loss of its dominant role. Palestinians from the country's largest refugee camp blocked access to the camp yesterday in protest over the Lebanese army's recent hike in security at its entrances. Protesters from the Ain el-Helwe refugee camp blocked traffic for 3 hours at the camp's 4 entrances. Ain el-Helwe, one of on the outskirts of the southern port of Sidon, houses some 50,000 people and is a hotbed of factional dispute where bomb attacks and other incidents, which usually cause no casualties, are frequent. Like other 11 camps, law and order is maintained by the factions, with Lebanese security forces only guarding the entrance. A Palestinian official who asked not to be named told AFP the army stepped up security measures at the entrance of the camp after charges made by Defense Minister Ilyas Mour, who was wounded July 7th in a car bomb explosion in a suburb north of Beirut. The outgoing pro-Syrian minister has said in a televised statement that he had information, quote, terrorist groups wanted by the law are hiding in refugee camps and had made attempts on his life. UN Security Council Resolution 1559, adopted in September 2004, calls for the disarmament of all Lebanese and non-Lebanese militias in the country.
إذن الأحداث التي تمر بها الأراضي الفلسطينية حملت إلى الواجهة شخصيات جديدة، وهو ما اعتبره البعض تجديدا لدماء بعض التيارات والمؤسسات السياسية في وقت تعلو فيه الأصوات المطالبة بإعفاء الجيل القديم من المسؤوليات الجسام.
Recent developments in the Palestinian territories led to the emergence of new leadership on the political front. Some critics describe this change as was forced to keep the election of its leadership anonymous and has minimized their leader appearances. As a result, Hamas is recruiting younger leaders to represent the movement. Two men are becoming publicly active in running the affairs of the movement, Sami Abu Zuhri and Mushir al-Masri.
رجلان في الأحداث مشير المصري وسامي
Mushir al-Masri and Sami Abu Zuhri were practically unknown prior to numerous tragic events that Hamas went through. After the death of its former leader Abdulaziz al-Rantisi, the movement decided to keep the information about its leadership anonymous. Since politically Hamas views publicity as important as the armed resistance, it became imperative to appoint a spokesman for it. This position has been filled by Mushir al-Masri and Sami Abu Zuhri. Prior to the assassinations of Ahmad Yassin, the founder of Hamas, and al-Rantisi, the names of those young men did not go beyond the perimeter of the campus of the Islamic University. They took turns in leading the coalition of the Student Union.
في الحقيقة نحن خرجنا في وقت ومن أصعب الظروف.
In fact, we emerged from a very difficult situation. It is probably one of the most difficult times, especially after the assassinations of our key leaders and figures. The latest assassination was the killing of Abed al-Aziz al-Rantisi. God bless him. Now we deal with the media more often. I was the president of the Student Union in the Islamic University for 4 years and the head of the Islamic Coalition for 8 years. And I have also served time in Israeli prisons.
لا وقت محددا لبدء يوم سامي أبو زهري فكلما
Sami always has the time for the media. Reporters can always count on him at any time, day or night, in his offices or in the streets. He is always willing to give interviews on television or via phone. Despite his busy schedule, he does not ignore his responsibility as a parent.
الوقت محدود جدا لكن هذا الوقت إن توفر فأنا أستخدم عادة في القراءة.
My time is very limited, and if I have it, I will spend it on reading, with the kids at home, or socializing.
في البيت واستقبال الضيوف وأيضا الزيارات الاجتماعية لكن هذا كله شيء محدود.
Sami is very familiar with Gaza City and indeed knows all its streets and alleys. He seemed to be very calm and confident as reporters are setting up for the interview. He knows how to talk to reporters. If he does not like the sound of a statement that he previously issued, he politely asks his interviewers to re-record his statement. Mushir al-Masri appears next to Sami Abu Zuhri as his twin. They have not only emerged from the same spring, but it seems that both complement each other. Mushir does not pay much attention to his own safety, even though he is always being accompanied by his bodyguard who follows him like his own shadow, and also he is always armed. He even brought his weapon to this interview at the studio of satellite networks. His statements are always brief and up to the point. However, when he addresses the crowd, he is full of enthusiasm and energy that he reminds people of Abdulaziz al-Rantisi. Through these enthusiastic speeches, al-Masri tries to move the audience's emotions and give impression that he and his friend Abu Zuhri are stepping slowly towards a higher position in one of the most well-known political organizations in the entire Arab and Muslim worlds. Amidst the continuing waves of events and new developments that the Gaza Strip has been increasingly embracing, Zuhri and al-Masri are progressing farther ahead of their predecessors in carrying out the responsibilities of the movement.
At least 17 people were killed in the latest violence in Iraq as Sunni Arabs said they would rejoin talks to hammer out a new constitution for the country. U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, speaking to reporters on his way to visit Kyrgyzstan, said he expected the constitution to be drafted by an August 15 deadline. As Poland announced it would pull out most of its troops from Iraq by the beginning of next year, the Australian Prime Minister made a surprise visit to Baghdad. Samir Jamil has the details.
As dawn broke, 12 Iraqi civilians were killed when a suicide car bomber blew up his minivan packed with explosives at a checkpoint outside a hotel in central Baghdad. Black smoke could be seen rising from near the area of the Sadr Hotel, which houses some foreign contractors. Less than 2 hours afterward, a suicide car bomber killed 3 Iraqi commandos and injured 6 when he struck their compound in Nasur Square in western Baghdad. The square is near an entrance to the heavily fortified green zone of the government and diplomatic compound. In another incident, gunmen stormed a house in the southern Baghdad district of Dora area, Al-Muaymin district, killing 4 people, including 2 women, and injured 3, including a child. According to police, it was not clear how they were killed. In Samarra town, north of Baghdad, the head of the local council, Taha Ahmed, was assassinated along with an associate. And the U.S. Army said one U.S. soldier was killed in the town by a roadside bomb, but gave no more details. The violence came as Sunni Arabs said they would rejoin talks to hammer out a new constitution for Iraq in the hope of rescuing a political process that had been severely strained by unrelenting bloodshed. The Sunnis walked out of the talks last week after one of their committee members was gunned down in front of a restaurant. At crisis talks on Monday, they secured pledges to better security and probe into the assassination. The presence of Sunnis on the constitution writing team would help to defuse an insurgency. Such hopes are anticipated by Iraqi and the U.S. governments. Meanwhile, arms trade is booming in Iraq. Different types of weapons are not a problem to buy in Baghdad since the fall of the regime of Saddam Hussein in April 2003. Police stations and military bases were ransacked. Weapons were looted, then sold on the streets of Baghdad to residents looking to protect themselves from the lawlessness which prevails in the country. Meanwhile, Australian Prime Minister John Howard made a surprise stop in Baghdad while en route home from a trip to Europe. Howard met with the Iraqi Prime Minister and then traveled to Iraq's southern Al-Muthanna province, where 450 Australian troops are helping train Iraqi security forces. At a joint news conference with his Iraqi counterpart, Howard told reporters that once Iraqi troops reach a stage of self-sufficiency, Australia will withdraw its forces from the country.
We want Iraqis to run Iraq's affairs, and we see our role as assisting the people of Iraq and the Iraqi government towards achieving that goal. We want to see into the future a strong economic relationship as well as a strong political relationship. We believe there are many ways in which our two people can work together. We were inspired by the sight of 8.5 million Iraqis risking their lives and risking injury in order to vote.
The Australian leader has recently met with US President George W. Bush in Washington and Prime Minister Tony Blair in London. Samir Jamil, Jordan Television.
Britain said it will exchange more intelligence information with France after the recent terror attacks in London. British Prime Minister Tony Blair made the remarks after meeting French Prime Minister Dominique de Villepin. Blair said both countries would work in tandem to combat the radicalization of their Muslim communities. He added that a lot of common ground had emerged from their broad-ranging discussions at 10 Downing Street. Dominique de Villepin said that all countries face the threat of terrorism at the moment. The British Prime Minister was holding talks with his French counterpart amid a continuing Anglo-French battle for supremacy in Europe.
Right, good afternoon, everyone. In relation to the exchange of data, particularly on communications and telecommunications, so that we're able to keep a record of some of the things that these people may have done going back over a period of time. Thirdly, an exchange of information and best practice about how we protect the most vulnerable sites.
We are facing difficult times, terrorism, and I want to express to you, Tony, and to all the British people, the solidarity and the friendship of the French people. We've been going through all these days, sharing with you these difficulties and this deep sorrow.
And back here at home, the 25th Annual Arab Children Congress, ACC, kicked off last night under the patronage of Her Majesty Queen Noor al-Hussein. This year is special as ACC celebrates its Silver Jubilee. The Performing Arts Center, organizer of the event, hosted guests of honor to the Congress, including Latin American singer Ricky Martin and Arab singer Latifa Al-Tunisiya. More with Dana Absham.
These are delegates to the 25th Annual Arab Children Congress. They come from 15 Arab countries and 9 countries from Europe, Asia, and Africa. They are joined by guests of honor, Tunisian singer Latifa Tunisiya, Latin American singer Ricky Martin, and the Secretary General Assistant for Social Affairs at the Arab League, Nancy Vakir. Her Majesty Queen Noor al-Hussein patronized the opening last night, officially kicking off the week-long Congress by the Performing Arts Center of the Noor al-Hussein Foundation. Celebrating 25 years of communication and creativity was the perfect theme for this year as the Congress celebrates its Silver Jubilee.
What we're going to focus on this year, that Jordan is a cradle for people to come, to talk, to open dialogue, and to promote peace, understanding, and tolerance.
Bringing people together is only one Congress objective. Others include cultural exchange and bridging of gaps. And according to Ricky Martin, who has decided to create a Latin American Congress after he was inspired by the Arab Children Congress, it's about getting rid of stereotypes.
I am going to go back home and I will create a Latin American Congress. That's how beautiful the impact has been. It's about getting rid of stereotypes and educating ourselves about different cultures, and I think that is something that needs to be done not only with the Arab countries, it should be done all over the world.
Ricky Martin told children today in a lively debate session on cultural diversity and creativity that he is their ally.
I am going to go back home and I'm going to talk about the next generation of Arab children that are creating, that are doing beautiful things to become better people, and with me you have an ally.
The singer, who has a foundation by his name that caters to commit its efforts to benefit the future of children around the world, said the Ricky Martin Foundation will create liaisons with local NGOs. He added also that if children allow him, he will be their spokesperson back home. Ricky Martin also announced he will be back in the region to hold a concert and maybe even sing in Arabic. One such fan is surely going to be there.
It's such a great experience to see someone like Ricky Martin here, and who has such a great interest in the good of children.
For others, the Congress is a great opportunity.
I expect us to learn and benefit a lot, such as time management, self-confidence. We will be improving our skills and widen our interests.
It's such an enriching experience in every kind of way, meeting new people, doing new things, expanding your horizons. It's my first time and I regret not having joined anything before.
The Congress delegates who have been picked for their distinguished talents in their schools in one of the following art disciplines, drama, dance, music, singing, and visual arts, will tackle throughout the duration of the Congress subjects such as empowering youth to create a better future, cultural diversity and creativity, and cultural heritage as the wellspring of creativity. This is Dana Absham for Jordan Television.
The views expressed on Mosaic are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities. And the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin.